we go, friends. Good afternoon for once. But it is still Sunday. Ugh. Welcome in, welcome in. Yeah. Clearly we're doing a bit of a later stream today. This is normally about the time we would be wrapping up. But Kara and I ran out to a farmer's market. Wanted to go nice and early while it was still pretty cool and while the best, like, produce and stuff was still there. We have indeed successfully farmer's marketed. And now we are here. It probably is going to be a shorter stream. I'm aiming for probably about 2 hours instead of about 4, but that's okay. And we still have a D&D recap to do. Popping up out here. And for the sake of the people that, I know there's at least a few people that tend to watch this on VOD, I'm gonna do the D&D recap about an hour in, like I normally do. So if you're watching the VOD, you can skip to about an hour in. How many farmers did I buy? Unfortunately, none. We bought a lot of their stuff, but no actual farmers. But yeah, I have made some actually fairly substantial progress on this. So, Rest of Courage is actually almost done. Got the last little bits of the last 3 points to do here. The Crest of Love is started. This is the bottom point, and the heart will go up from here, because remember, we're going from the bottom up. And then this next row, I will actually be starting the Crest of Friendship. And those are the last crests to be done. We're perilously close to finishing this. Not like within a few days, but like I'm down to about 20 rows. My goal is to have it done by the end of July, and I am decently on track for that. It's exciting. But yeah, we went to the farmer's market in search of fresh fruit and veg. Because of course Kitty is coming to visit this week. And we wanted to have nice fresh things for Kitty to snack on. So we got some nice, let's see, what all did we get? We got some really nice peas that are tasty and sweet. We got a big bunch of spinach and a bunch of like mixed salad greens for salads. Got a few cucumbers. We got some strawberries, some Saskatoon berries, which are kind of similar to a blueberry, but like a different taste to them a little bit. And some mulberries, which will be interesting to figure out what we're gonna do with those. Got a bunch of cherry tomatoes. We got, what else did we get? I think that's about it as far as the fruit and veg. We also got full jars of jam. We got a jar of homemade miso paste that we like. There's a vendor that we go to just about every time we go to the farmer's market. And she has her own homemade miso paste that is delicious. We put it on like salmon mostly, but a bunch of other stuff too. We bought a refill jar of that. And the vodka. Oh yes, garlic and garlic scapes. Which, garlic scapes are like baby garlic, right? Like it's garlic that's been pulled before it's even really had a chance to like bulb out. Or am I incorrect? But yes, we got to pet some good doggos. So that was exciting. Garlic scapes are the greens of garlic. So they're like green onions, but different. Yeah, because, like, so the bulbs of garlic that we bought still had the stems and the greens on them, and they didn't look anything like the scapes, which is why I thought maybe the scapes get pulled when they're younger. Because they're, like, real tender. And the greens that were still attached to, like, the full-grown garlic bulbs we bought were not tender. Also, yeah, hello, Kuma. Good afternoon. We just got back from a farmer's market where we walked around in the hot. It actually wasn't terrible. It's about it's like 28 degrees here right now, which I know, Randus. Yeah, so it's like in the low 80s Fahrenheit here today. It's not bad at all. It's very sunny, so when we were in the sun, it was starting to get pretty hot, but in the shade, it's actually not bad. And we did drink a lot of water, and we did wear sunscreen. And also, my hair is very wet because as soon as we got home, we both showered. But overall, certainly not nearly as bad as what some of our European friends are enduring. +80 is very hot? Well, okay, yes, but not compared to the people that are like in 100-degree weather currently. Like, for us in the summer, low 80s is fairly normal. It's when it gets into the high 80s that it's like, oh, this is bad, this is abnormally hot. Yeah, exactly. 80 degrees Fahrenheit is just summer. Yeah, 38°C, 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's too hot. Like, yes, I totally agree, Randus, that above 80, I would also consider that hot, but I wouldn't consider it unusually hot for here. It was just kind of like, okay, this is pleasant to walk around in for a little while. Okay, now I'm getting too warm. Okay, now I want to go inside. Scapes are the greens of garlic, but they are often harvested or cut down early on so that the growth resources redirect to the bulb. Okay, interesting. You're guessing they cut the scapes off a time or two and then allow them to grow once the garlic bulb is of sufficient size so that they can harvest it easily by just going yoink. That makes sense. That would indeed make sense. 100 plus is death. Agreed. I have only experienced weather over 100 like 2 or 3 times in my life, and I have no desire to repeat the experience. Luckily, I believe all of the times I experienced it, it was really dry, which made it not quite as bad, but yeah, still awful. 0 out of 10, do not recommend. But hopefully all of you are staying somewhat cool. Make sure you are drinking lots of water. By the time you are thirsty, it is too late. Especially if you're out in the heat, you need to be drinking all the time. Also, hey, we're later than normal. Reminder to eat. You're in a time zone where you need to find food. Go do that. Already did? Excellent. I did as well, for once I ate before stream. Make dinner in a bit. Excellent. Drop the I'm here, Blake. Becoming a truly unwieldy amount of blanket. So much of it. Normal amount of blanket? I mean, yes and no. So this is actually going to be quite large. I haven't actually done like exact measurements yet, but it is going to be like at least, well, because Kara and I have a double bed. Or no, we have a full bed. We have a full-size bed, and this blanket is going to be slightly larger than that. I don't know if it's gonna quite be queen size, but probably pretty close. And it's because of this stitch that I'm using, it's really thick. Like, it's really thick and cushy. So it's like actually really heavy when you like pick the whole thing up. It's a very good amount of yarn. Let me put it this way. So the black yarn, because I knew I was gonna need a bunch of it, the black yarn I bought in 1 pound balls. and I'm on my second ball. So we're at like 1.5 pounds of yarn just in the black, not accounting for any of the colored stuff or any of the rainbow stuff. And if you don't think 1.5 pounds of yarn sounds like a lot, it's a lot. This is going to be a very thick and warm blanket when it is. Oh, there. Okay. The problem with warm blankets is that W word. It's true. I also tend to get overheated underneath blankets. Still love them. But yes, the overheating problem is. And the downside of a crochet blanket like this is it's difficult. Like, you couldn't just like hang it up on the wall as a display piece if you wanted. Like, if you didn't want to use it as a blanket, because depending on how you hung it, it might cause the blanket to stretch in a way that something like a quilt would not stretch. Um, you'd have to be you'd have to do some research. Probably modify the blanket a bit if you wanted to hang it. And even then you might end up with it stretching and distorting a little bit because it's not meant to be hung from an edge. Something like, say, the Minecraft scarf I did last year. I did actually include loops on the back of that, so if you wanted to, you could run like a rod through it and hang it up. But the difference is that was a lot lighter. This blanket is so heavy that even just the act of hanging it, all of the weight, like the weight hanging from the top of it, would cause it to start to stretch. One of my nails. One of my nails has just enough of a ridge on catching every time I try to grasp the second here. And of course it's on my dominant hand. Awkward angle. There we go. That's better. That'll do for now. Have cold coffee and am very awake. I mean, it is somewhat later than we would normally be starting stream. So hopefully you're more awake. But also, hi, good afternoon. Cold coffee does actually sound really nice. I have a hot coffee, but I am also inside in air conditioning, which is fun. But I do love a good iced coffee in summer. Been very eepy this weekend. I mean, also fair. I'm guessing on account of the heat. Heat always makes me very eepy. But what if no coffee? I mean, that is a choice you are free to make, Randus. And you have many times. Do you draw or play a game? Ooh. I suppose it depends on if you have any active commissions at the moment. Or any other miscellaneous deadlines approaching. Otherwise, the coin? After stream, I am probably going to go, like, chill and play Monster Hunter Wilds because I've gotten back into that recently. I've also restarted my Hades run, Hades 1, because, so I think I might have mentioned this last time I streamed. I am holding off, I am bribing myself that I'm not allowing myself to start playing Hades 2 until after I finish this blanket, because I know the moment I start Hades 2, I'm gonna lose, like, weeks to it. So I've been holding off. But I have been playing around with Hades 1 again. But I'll probably go chill and play Monster Hunter Wilds this afternoon. I feel like no thoughts, head empty, stab monster. I've actually made quite a large amount of progress on this blanket this week, so I'm allowing myself that after stream I'm taking the evening off as far as crochet goes. I am very much on track to finish by the end of July, which is where I wanted to be, so we're in good shape. Ooh, been playing through the Devil May Cry games. Nifty. So, I don't know. Devil May Cry, Resident Evil, Silent Hill, like, I've never been into any of those. It was only within the last few years that I really became, like, more of an action game person, and I'm still not really an action game person. And the, like, horror and horror adjacent, like, aesthetics and vibes don't really draw me very much. So I've never gotten into any of those franchises. I've heard they're very good and very fun. They've just never really been for me. Always had a hate-love relationship with horror games. Yeah, very fair. I'm like, they don't... Like, I'm not necessarily one of those people that they, like, freak me out or anything. I'm just like, I don't enjoy them, really. They're just not for me. Sometimes the visuals will get me kind of squicked out, depending on what exactly it is. But it's more of, like, I don't really enjoy the gameplay or even without jump scares, like, I just don't really enjoy those sorts of things, so I've just never bothered. The most, like, I will say I do like, sort of atmospheric horror, like when I played Interior Worlds on this channel, where it's, like, exploring in, like, a creepy abandoned area, that kind of thing. Like an atmospheric horror I can kind of get behind, but like the in-your-face blood and guts and gore and zombies kind of horror is just, yeah, not for me. Thank you. Not something I enjoy playing, not even really something I enjoy watching. For the most part. Don't enjoy being frustrated by bad mechanics. I mean, also that. But for me, it's more of just, yeah. Usually, like, the visuals and the, like, atmosphere and the jump scares and things, I'm just like, nah, no thank you. I would rather not and go play something that I do enjoy. Can't play horror games, but you enjoy some Let's Nope for the ones with story. Yeah, that's fair. Like I said, most of the time I just don't even enjoy watching them. Like, but what if I go do something else? than I do. Okay. Another row finished. Flip it around again. Which again is getting increasingly more difficult with every row I add. Okay. Grasp the blanket firmly like the hamburger. Flip it. Ugh. And then flip it like this. Okay. Like, I cannot begin to oversell how much yarn there is here. Okay. Alright, now I need to count some. So 10, 13, 15. Okay. So 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 17, 18. Double count. 5, 6, 13, 15. Okay. That stitch. About 15 minutes or so, we will start the D&D recap. So if you need to go grab refills on your drinks, grab food, whatever you need to do before that. It probably won't be too long of a recap, but then again, I tend to ramble. So we'll see. There were some very interesting happenings in yesterday's session. You know, both of those things can be true. hashtag blame Randus, and yet also Randus's don't even worry about it. They can both be true. Probably. Who needs fancy stitch markers? I have giant safety pins. Okay. Now, count a little bit again. 5, 6. Okay. Come here, yarn. Here. Start the friendship. Why must we keep shipping our friends? No, I said starting. I mean, the friend shipping is probably important for some reason. I don't know. Seems it's important. Everybody keeps saying we should do it. Off the table. Get back up on the next row on the way back. That'll secure it a little more tightly. Things I learned 3/4 of the way through a blanket. Or rather, things I developed 3/4 of the way through a blanket. If ship the friends to new places to broaden their horizons. I mean, that could work. seems like it would be an option. Make sure you get parcel insurance on that. Dinner has been acquired. Excellent. Da dinner. What sort of dinner? I was curious about people have decided to. Okay, then it is fine. Lots of. A merp. A merp from the Kitsune. Let me guess, is that a slightly overheated merp? Thinking it might be a slightly overheated merp. Alright. Mark off my pattern. Then we'll get into this recap. So, last time in the Adventures of the Platinum Dragoon, we had successfully slain the White Dragon Cryovane and lifted her lair. And then we were able to go to the nearby shrine where we knew there was an active, like an altar with an active blessing on it, so that anyone that touched the altar would gain the god's blessing for a certain amount of time. And that's useful to us because we now had the potions that we have, well, not us, but that our herbalist friend in Phandalin has been brewing for us. So we were able to cure Phalar of his were-ratism. So he began this session with 5 levels of exhaustion. The poor dear. But, you know, distinct lack of whiskers and weird teeth, which is probably a net positive. Probably a net positive. You'd have to ask Phalar to be sure, but I'm gonna guess net positive. So we headed back toward Phandalin, and as we were traveling the Tribor Trail to head back toward Phandalin, like nothing stuck out to us as being strange. Like there was no like there's the usual wildlife noises, like it's quiet, but it's, you know, like November by this time. The temperature is starting to dip, especially at night. Fall is starting to slide into winter. But we don't meet any other travelers, which, you know, again, it's the Tribor Trail, so not super unusual, but like we notice it, that there aren't any other travelers. And also, not only are there not any other travelers, there's also no signs of the kobold activity that we were kind of half expecting to see, considering we just slew the white dragon that they were all, well, most of them were serving. So that's interesting and potentially concerning. We can put a pin in, I guess we'll call them suspiciously absent kobolds? Question mark. We were kind of expecting kobold activity, but we saw no kobold activity. So whether that turns out to be a positive or a negative is slightly TBD. But we do indeed arrive back in Phandalin. It took us about 2 and a bit days to travel back, during which time Phalar shed a couple of his levels of exhaustion. He's down to 3. It's fine. And also Watson aged a certain number of years, considering that he is still carrying the chartle and circlet for us. And being in Fey Dragon form, the rapid acquisition of additional years does not hinder him the way it would any of us. So as we approach Phandalin, we're, you know, approaching from the north from the Tribor Trail. And as we approach the fork where the road kind of veers off, it either heads straight south into the main square of town, or, you know, veers off toward Darren's house and the orchard. Glint basically grabs Watson straight off Basil's shoulder and is just kind of like, "Come on, Watson, let's go get that circlet given, taken care of and hidden away with Darren. So she heads off down the path with Watson, and Basil is kind of like, oh, okay, and Basil follows after them. Meanwhile, Bram kind of calls out, like, we're gonna, Phalar is riding in the cart at this point, because considering he still has several levels of exhaustion. So Bram kind of calls out, like, hey, we're gonna take, I'm gonna take Phalar back to the manor, and touch base with Silidar, catch up with us, once you're done with Darren. So we split off. Light and Arendiao tag along with Bram and Phalar in the cart to head into town, and Glint and Basil take Watson over toward the orchard to hopefully deliver the circlet to Darren. So as Glint approaches, she's doing the Glint thing. She's got big news to share, so she's, yelling, calling out even as they're approaching the house of kind of, Darren, we did it! We slew Cryovane, we've got the circlet, Darren, we did it! And doesn't get an answer. So she, stops to actually knock on the door, because she's like, well, maybe Darren wants me to be polite, so she knocks on the door. And not only is there no answer, but when she knocks, the door, like, from the force of the knock, the door kind of swings open a little bit, like it wasn't properly latched. So Glint's kind of like, well, that's concerning. She kind of pokes her head in and she's like, Darren? And the house is empty. Darren is not here. Darren's sword, which granted he has been using as kind of a crutch or a cane, considering he's now missing a leg, his sword is also not here. And nothing, like the furniture is all in place, the stove is cold, nothing looks like it's out of place other than the fact that the sword is gone. But Darren probably took it with him. Maybe he's just in town. But it is first thing in the morning. So the way that our travel worked out is we ended the second day of travel like maybe 10 miles away from Phandalin, and we could have probably pushed ourselves and gotten into Phandalin late that night, but we would have all taken a level of exhaustion. So we just kind of decided, you know what? No, we're fine. Let's camp here one more night, and then we're getting into town first thing in the morning instead of at, like, midnight. Which works out for us anyway, because, like, we need to talk to people, we need to see Darren, we need to touch base with Silidar. Better to do that in the morning than in the middle of the night. So we had camped basically just outside of town, and now it is still fairly early in the morning that we're getting into town. So while Darren could have taken his sword and gone into town, it's a little bit strange considering how early in the morning it is, which is what sticks out to Glint as well. So she's suspicious that she's not getting an answer and Darren doesn't seem to be here. So she steps inside and goes to check the carpet that Darren had showed her that's laid over the trapdoor that leads into his basement storage area. And while she's doing that, Basil examines the door latch to try to tell if maybe see if he could tell maybe if somebody had picked the lock. And it doesn't look like the lock has been picked, but it does look like there's a little bit of splintering in the door frame, like the shim of the door frame where the lock would have been. So it looks like somebody forced the door open, but very precisely. Like, this wasn't somebody kicking down the door brute force. This was somebody who knew exactly where to apply the correct amount of pressure to force the lock and get inside, or force the latch and get inside. Um, so Basil's kind of like, oh, that's not good. And goes over to let Glint know, like, hey, it looks like somebody's forced the door open. And when he tells Glint that, Glint's just kind of like, oh, you're like, oh, for fuck's sake. And so she pulls the rug aside. It doesn't look, and Basil could also tell when he walked over to take a look as well, that it looks like the rug has been moved. Like it was spread back out over top of the door, but it, like, you know how sometimes you can tell when an area rug has been picked up and then put back down, not quite in the same place. Like there's a little bit of maybe discoloration on the floor, or like it's just slightly askew. And so Basil's like, it looks like somebody's moved the rug. So Glint's just kind of like, oh, damn it. And so she pulls the rug up so that she and Basil can go downstairs and check on the basement. Probably makes more sense just to follow. Yeah. I'll tell it that way. In session, we were kind of bouncing back and forth, of course, between Glint and Basil and the others, but in the retelling, I think I'll do one storyline and then the other to make it a little bit easier to retell. Yeah, like a line in the dust where the rug hadn't been put back down quite where it was before. Sorry. So Glint does her best to remember, because Darren had done like very specific motions to get the door to unlock. But Glint is able to remember them, and so she gets the trap door open, and goes down the little ladder into the basement. And as Glint is standing there looking around, there's like mannequins and like the weapon racks and like the shelving units and everything are all still in place, but they're all empty. So like there's a weapon rack that Glint remembers, oh yeah, there was, a sword and an axe on that weapon rack, and now it's just an empty weapon rack. And there's a mannequin where Glint remembers, like, oh yeah, it had like a breastplate on it or something, and now it's just an empty mannequin. And Glint kind of goes, uh-oh. But she does notice, so there's a few things that Glint notices. One is that despite all of the items that were here being gone, it doesn't look like anything's been disturbed. So like there's dust on the floor, because Darren doesn't come down here and clean all that often. Or come down here at all that often. So there's like a thick layer of dust on the floor, and when she's looking at it, Glint can see like the footprints and the paw prints from when Darren brought her down here to show her the bust that he had prepared for the circlet. She can kind of see their tracks in the dust, but there's no other tracks in the dust. There's no other disturbances anywhere. It doesn't look like anybody's been down here, and yet all the stuff is gone. So she's like, okay, this is weird. So she calls up to Basil, and she's like, hey Basil, just, stand guard up there for a few minutes. I'm gonna cast Detect Magic. Because Glint's first thought is like, okay, well maybe, like, who knows, maybe everything's invisible. Maybe everything is still here. And, oh, nope, that is the wrong yarn. Maybe everything has been turned invisible. Maybe this is like an extra security feature that Darren forgot to tell me about. Maybe all the magic items are still here. They've just been made invisible to keep them safe. Who knows? So she casts Detect Magic. And once she casts Detect Magic and looks around, she can see that there's a weird sort of like whitish, like almost a film of magic all over everything. Like, you know how almost as if you were um like looking through a filter almost of a camera where like everything is kind of like tinted a little bit, like there's a little bit of a film, just a white film of enchantment over everything. And in addition to that, there's little trails in the air of what looks like transmutation magic. So like just little like lines and trails through the air. And I'm pretty sure, I know I made this connection. I think probably in character Glint did as well. Glint has seen, because her first kind of thought of transmutation is like, oh, did somebody shrink all of the items to carry them? But she's seen Bram use enlarge reduce, which is also transmutation magic, and she knows well enough that if it was that spell or a similar spell, it would show up in detect magic as like a spot, like if you cast reduce on something, on a suitcase, to be able to carry it easier, the suitcase would shrink, and if you were to look at it later with detect magic, it would leave like a spot in the air, not necessarily these like trails that she's seeing. So that's strange. So she's telling Basil all this, like, here's what I'm seeing, and Basil makes the connection of Basil once knew somebody that was able to shift into like a gaseous form, and that would leave probably a similar trail of transmutation magic if they were using their gaseous form to, say, like, slip through cracks of some kind. And if they were, for instance, using a gaseous form to get into the basement and then transforming back to solid form in order to pick up a bunch of items, and then transforming back into gaseous form to escape with those items, potentially several times, because remember, everything in this basement is gone, that would potentially leave these kind of trails. So that's interesting. That's information we now have. So at this point, Glint and Basil are basically like, okay, I don't like this. This is clearly something is wrong. Darren is not here. All of Darren's magic stuff is gone, which is also extremely concerning. We need to hook up with the others. So Basil sends Watson of like, hey, go catch up with the others, you know, get them, or try to herd them, lead them back toward us so that we can try to meet up in the middle. Like, we need to talk. This is weird. We don't like this. So meanwhile, hi Kite, you didn't actually miss all that much. We got back into Phandalin. Glint and Basil split off with Watson to go take the circlet to Darren, and found Darren gone. And that's about all that you've missed so far. Meanwhile, while Basil and Glint ran off toward Darren's, Bram and Arendiau and Light and Phalar in the cart continued on toward town and through the middle of town. And as we made the turn toward the manor, because Bram's thought is, okay, Phalar needs to, like, rest or go to bed, and also we need to touch base with Silidar. And this early in the morning, Silidar is probably still puttering around at the manor. Or if he's not, Merrick is. So as we make the turn through the town square to head toward the manor, we pass right by the inn. So Bram has the thought of like, oh, alright, I'm gonna stick my head into the inn real quick. I'll let Torben know, you know, I'll at least let Torben know right away that we have slain Cryovane, and the white dragon is dead, and Phandalin is safe, so that at least that way, you know, he's the innkeeper. He can start kind of distributing that information to the rest of the townspeople, that they don't have to worry about the white dragon anymore. So Bram, you know, steps into the inn, and it's fairly full. Tobin, yes, thank you. Sorry, Randus. The inn is like normal levels of full. You know, it's miners stopping in, grabbing their breakfast before they head off to the day's work kind of thing. Bram kind of glances around, but rolls low enough on his perception check that he doesn't particularly take note of anyone specific that might or might not be in the inn. But Tobin is indeed behind the counter, so Bram trots over to him and is like, "Good morning, you know, we just got back into town. I wanted to stop in and let you know the good news that the white dragon is dead and Phandalin is safe. You know, we're gonna circle back and we'll officially inform the town master in a little bit, but we just wanted to let you know as soon as possible so that you could start telling the townspeople." And Tobin just kind of stares at Bram for a second and then just kind of distractedly nods a little bit and is just like, okay, sure. And then kind of half turns and is like, "Order for table 3. And Nilsa, who is the teenage daughter of the woodcutter, she's like, okay, fine, got it. And she kind of like nudges her way past Bram to be able to grab the order and turns to go take it to the table, but like doesn't even acknowledge Bram's presence really. Like doesn't even kind of glance at him and just kind of walks away, which is kind of odd. I mean, she's a teenager, but like we saved her life and we have visited with her mom like multiple times. Like a little weird, but Bram kind of like shakes it off. He's just kind of like, okay, this is weird, but like I don't know, it's first thing in the morning, who knows, and he's got other things to worry about, so he just kind of lets it go and steps back outside. I will also mention that above table, this was a product of SJ being very eepy, and like SJ thinking it was weird, but not sure how weird it was supposed to be in game. So it just kind of, Bram just kind of brushes it off for the moment. He's like, okay, well, you know, maybe everyone's just having an off day. It's fine. He was expecting a little bit more, I don't know, joyous reaction at the news that the dragon was dead, but who knows? So he heads back outside. Right across the street from the inn is the town's bakery. And as Bram steps back outside, the baker is, you know, just opening the door, putting, you know, racks and trays of bread out in the display window, getting ready to open up shop for the day. And Bram can smell, you know, the sweet scent of like breakfast pastries and the buttery good smell of fresh bread, but also like the bitterness of like burning bread. And Bram kind of has the thought of like, they must have burned a loaf or something, like that's why they opened the door to air it out a little bit. And so Bram kind of waves at the baker, and the baker kind of tips his hat back, and Bram's like, "Good morning. We wanted to spread the news that the white dragon is dead and the city is safe." And similar to Tobin, the baker just kind of nods and is like, "Oh, yes, that is great news," and then just kind of carries on with what he was doing, which also seems extremely strange. But again, Bram kind of shakes it off a little bit, and they continue on down the road toward where the manor is. It does seem weird, doesn't it? Again, Bram was kind of expecting more, at least more reaction to the news of, hey, the dragon that attacked the town twice is dead. Now, are we sure this is a real problem and not just lack of caffeine in Randus? See, that's that's kind of why Bram was letting it slide, because I wasn't sure either. I'm like, I think this is weird, but I'm not sure how weird it's supposed to seem. But yes, it's weird. We'll get there. It becomes increasingly clear that it's weird. So as we approach the manor, Bram decides, okay, let's go in through the lower entrance. Let's go in through the lower entrance. Kind of parks the cart outside. Helps Phalar down from the cart to get him inside. Bram's first thought is to like try to herd Phalar to bed and just be like, and like, you know, mother hen him a little bit and be like, you're so exhausted, like go to sleep. And Phalar's like, no, I'm fine. Like we need to check in with Celadar. Like, don't ask me to run any marathons, but I'm alright. Tried so hard to lean into the weird, no one got there. Look, we were all eepy and there was only 3 of us. Kitte probably would have picked up on the weird, but Kitte was not there. But yes, so we head into the manor. Head up into the war room, like the common area. There's nobody there. The map that is usually like stuck to the table with a dagger is still there. You picked up on it, but Basil wasn't there. Yeah, that's also fair, Merlin. The map is there, but there's no people. So Bram heads up out into the hallway to knock on. Well, he was gonna knock on the office door, but when he steps into the hallway, the office door is just open. So Bram pokes his head in, and Celadar keeps a fairly tidy office, and it's still fairly tidy. Like, nothing seems super out of place. There doesn't seem to be anything obviously wrong or missing or added or any of that. It's just empty. No Celadar. So Bram kind of calls out, like, just in case, you know, he's still in his bedroom getting ready for the day, since it is morning. Bram's like, you know, hey, Celadar, we're back. But there's no answer. So Phalar goes in and actually goes over to poke his head into Celadar's chambers, just to be sure. And sure enough, no Celadar in his bedroom either. And we hadn't run into him on our way into town. So even if he is out and about, we like missed him somehow, perhaps. So Phalar and Bram continue on, search through the various hallways, through some of the storage rooms, knock on the door to the jail. The door to the jail is currently locked, which to Bram means that like Merrick or whoever probably isn't in there caring to the prisoners at this moment, because if they were, why would they lock the door behind them? But just to be thorough, they grab the spare one of the spare sets of keys, to unlock the jail door and poke their heads in. And when they do, they find the jail cells locked, closed, the way that they were left, and the 2 sort of, I guess, minion red bands that we had captured alive are hanging in their manacles the way that they normally are. However, they're both dead. They've had their throats slit, and the glass staff is nowhere to be seen. Yeah, the hench people. The 2 mooks. The 2 mooks in red cloaks. They're both dead. And the glass staff is nowhere to be seen. And so that's interesting. So at that point, Phalar and Bram are like, oh crap. So they backtrack to where Light and Arendiao had stayed in the common room, because Light had made note of something on the map. Or rather, the lack of something on the map. So this is a big map. It's like one of the big, like, table size, like, war maps that you would expect to see, that Celadar has been making, you know, notes and little like notations and X's and symbols and things as we have relayed information to him. And now when we look at it, all of those little notations, all of the ink, all of the marks that Silidar has made on this map are all gone. Like the map itself is still, like, it's still got the map itself, but all of the extra markings that Silidar had made have just been wiped clean. Balar kind of makes the connection of like, oh, something like prestidigitation could have done this, because prestidigitation will clean an item, such as, you know, cleaning all of the ink off of this map. But who did it and why currently remains a mystery. Like, maybe it was Silidar himself trying to hide information from who? Don't know. So that's interesting. So at that point, oh, and also, we obviously, Silidar is not here, and neither is Merrick. We haven't found him yet either. So at this point, the rest of us are also like, okay, this is weird. We need to go meet up with Basil and Glint. Like, we need to discuss this. This is weird. We search the rest of, like, the last couple rooms, the last storage room and the chapel, you know, just in case, but don't find anyone. And as we leave, we head out through the garden entrance, and sure enough, the gnome that has been working for us as a gardener, the gnome is up there, just kind of, you know, digging around, doing his usual gardening things. So Bram kind of waves at the gardener and is just like, you know, good morning there. Like, where might I find Silidar this early in the morning? And the gnome just kind of stares at us. Like, there's no sign of recognition or anything. He just kind of stares at us and goes, Scylla who? Which is, you know, also concerning. I'm saying that a lot this session, you might notice. So at this point, Elrad, or sorry, not Elrad. Well, I mean, it was Elrad technically, but Phalar has the same thought that Glint does for a slightly different reason. And Phalar also casts Detect Magic, just to, you know, see what's going on. And sure enough, Phalar sees the same sort of film of white enchantment magic over everything. Like, it's thickest on the gnome, it's heavier on the gnome, but it's like on everything. It's on the land, it's like on the buildings, it's all over everything except us. Like, we are, that sort of white film of enchantment is not on any of us. And whether that's because we weren't here when the spell was cast, or we haven't been here long enough for it to affect us, or rather, I should say, not necessarily when the spell was cast, because we don't actually know that this is a spell. And in fact, above table, we know that it's not a spell. And actually, even in universe, Phalar probably knows that this isn't a spell. Because it's affecting too many people. It's too wide of an area. It's too big of an effect. It can't be a single spell. So it's possibly some kind of a magic item. It's possibly some kind of a monster. It's possibly maybe like a circle ritual of some kind. But it's not just a spell was cast. So rather, we're not affected. If we're not affected because we weren't here when the effect took hold, or if we just haven't stayed long enough for it to start affecting us, we don't know. But it seems to be altering memories, because people in town are looking at us like they don't know who we are. But it's also like people are only reacting to us when we interact with them first. Um, like I kept making comparisons to like NPCs in video games. Like they're only reacting to us when we walk up to them and press A, kind of thing. And otherwise, they're going through, it almost seems like scripted. Like the baker has been programmed to do baking things. And when he's not being interacted with, he is just continuing on to do baking things. And, you know, Nilsa has been programmed to do waitressing things. And, you know, it's all very strange. We head back into town. Watson finds us and is kind of like poking at us to continue on to meet up with Glint and Basil, so we do. And Glint casts her telepathic bond spell so that we can all talk amongst ourselves without saying anything out loud. You know, just in case there's something around to overhear us. We don't know. We, you know, in our brief walks through town, we didn't see anybody out of place, but that doesn't mean they're not there. So we have, you know, we kind of all compare notes and share all this information. After that, we kind of walk around the perimeter of town. Using detect magic, Phalar is able to tell that this effect, whatever it is affecting about 1,000-foot bubble. Like it's a kilometer-wide bubble right over Phandalin. As we circle around the outside of town, we come across the finished railway that runs between Phandalin and Nomengard. There is a part on the tracks, like it's currently at the Phandalin end, and there's a couple gnomes that are there attending it. And they're also caught in whatever this effect is. Basil, so there is a couple more things. So, Phalar, yes, I was just about to get to that. So, sort of two more things. So, first, Basil cast Locate Object on Darren's sword. Because, as a reminder, previously, when Darren had been injured by Cryovane and Basil and Glint were rescuing him, Basil has seen and handled Darren's sword, and so is, you know, somewhat familiar with it. So Basil casts Locate Object, targeting that sword, and gets no pings. And probably casts it a couple times, sort of around the perimeter of Phandalin, doesn't get any pings. So Darren's sword is nowhere within the area around Phandalin. And if Darren's sword is with Darren, which we assume it is, but it might not be, but the sword itself is nowhere around, which is interesting. The other thing that we try is Phalar tries to use the Sending Stone again, with the thought of, okay, so when we used it last time, right after we defeated Cryovane, it seemed like Karp had it. But, you know, it's been like 5 days since then. You know, maybe Silidar has reclaimed it, maybe somebody else has it, maybe we can get a hold of somebody. So Phalar tries to use the Sending Stone again, and basically just sends kind of a generic message, not wanting to give away our position, just in case somebody nefarious has grabbed the stone, but just kind of does a generic, like, hey, we're reporting in, do you have any information for us, kind of message. And the reply he gets back is, so a Sending Stone it's a magical item, and when you receive a message with it, you can also then send a reply. But it's sort of like, if you don't know how to use the Sending Stone will just kind of pick up your surface thoughts and use that as the return message. Does that make sense? Like, I've gotten a message in, I don't know how to send a message in return, so the stone is just going to automatically sort of send a message in return of like whatever the next sentence you were thinking about is. So when Phalar uses the stone, the message that he gets back is just like, ooh, oh, a shiny rock. This must be magic. I should go have breakfast. And it's Carp again. It's the child, but it's interesting in that he's used the sending stone before. He should know that it's magic. And B, it's almost like he like paused in the middle of that thought, and it like almost like his thoughts reset themselves. Because like he's surprised. He's like, oh wow, this rock must be magic. And then there's kind of like almost a stutter, and then he's like, oh, I should go and get breakfast. Which, you know, might be the thing that he would normally do at that time of day. So it's, whatever this effect is, it's weird and interesting. It's like these people have been programmed to just kind of follow default actions of what they would normally probably be doing, and anything out of the ordinary is ignored. And also there seems to be some kind of memory modification at the same time, because nobody seems to remember us. And also, we can't find Merrick, Darren, or Celadar. And we haven't seen, like, there's a bunch of people we haven't seen around town, but we also haven't specifically looked for them yet. So, some examples would be, like, Carp's mother, the druid Alderleaf. We haven't seen her yet. The white lady, who is the dragonborn, shopkeep that tends to set up in the inn. Bram didn't roll high enough on perception to see if maybe she was there or maybe she wasn't there. He didn't notice one way or the other. We haven't seen the town master, not that he's likely to be useful, but just as a note, we haven't seen him. Lady of Frost, that's it. Thank you. I knew she had a name like that. I just couldn't remember specifically what it was. Yes, Lady of Frost. There's a couple other people in town that, you know, whatever this effect was, like, might have been able to resist it, question mark, or people who, yeah, people above table, people who might have succeeded on a saving throw to not get ensorcelled by whatever this effect was. So, yeah, so we sort of discuss all of this, share all of this information, and we're like, okay, well, what do we do now? And in sort of discussing things, we remember that on the list of people that we haven't seen that we might want to get eyes on, Mira, the herbalist, Nilsa's mother, and also Abrela? The potion maker that was living at the windmill, that had moved into town when Cryovane destroyed the windmill. And Droop. Yes, also Droop. And I guess also worth noting is we haven't seen Yemek, but again, we weren't expecting to see Yemek. Yemek is not based out of Phandalin. So again, just kind of worth noting, but we weren't expecting him to be here either. In fact, there's potential, and I'll get to this in a bit when I discuss our options. There's potential that maybe, you know, if Celadar and Merrick got out of town from whatever this is, maybe they went to Cragmaw Hideout to regroup with Yemek. We don't know. Put a pin in that. So, again, as we're sort of discussing all of this, we remember that there's been an effort to work to rebuild the windmill that's south of town. Because it got Adabra, that's it, thank you. I knew her name started with an A and ended with an A, and I couldn't remember the letters in between. So yes, she had moved into town while her windmill is being rebuilt. So we're like, oh yeah, so there should have been workmen down at the windmill maybe they've escaped whatever this effect is. So we should go and check on the windmill. And the windmill is not that far away. It's only about 5 miles away, which is outside of this area of effect. So theoretically, if there's anybody there, maybe they're not affected. And it's not that far away. We can get there and back within a day. So that's our plan. That's our first step. So we head down to the windmill. And as we approach, we can see that the windmill is still mostly in ruins. There are piles of like construction materials around. Like there's, piles of lumber that look like they've been prepared. There's building stone. But there's no workmen around. There's no people around. As we get closer and kind of, call out, hello, is anyone here? We start to hear a little bit of like scrabbling around down in. So as a reminder, the windmill itself was destroyed, but the basement is still fairly intact. That's why Adabra wasn't hurt or wasn't killed when the windmill was attacked, because she was able to hide in the basement. So the basement is still like relatively structurally sound. So Glint goes over to like poke her head into the basement and goes, hello? And she can just kind of hear like little sniffling sounds and just like, Droop in charge, but nobody listened to Droop. Droop in charge, but nobody liked Droop. In just, the saddest little goblin voice you've ever heard. And so Glint immediately just like, goes rushing over to where Droop is kind of huddled up in the corner with, his knees pulled up to his chest, kind of hugging his own knees. And Glint goes rushing over and just like snatches him up in this giant backseat bear hug. And it's just like, oh, Droop, like, I'm so glad you're okay. Like, what happened? Do you know what's going on? And Droop, being Droop, is just kind of like, I don't, Droop doesn't know. Every time Droop goes into town, nobody says hello. Nobody likes Droop. Nobody wants to help Droop. And he kind of points over to like where he's clearly been trying to rebuild a wall, like mostly by himself. He's just kind of been piling stones up by himself because the workers have stopped coming out to help him. And so Glint is just like, oh no, like, it's okay, Droop, like, something's weird. It's not that they don't like you anymore, it's just something's going on. And so it turns out that Droop has actually been sleeping at the windmill. All of the rest of the workers are going home back to Phandalin at night, or had been, but Droop's been sleeping at the windmill so that he could be up first thing in the morning and get an early start on work. Because as a reminder, he and Adabra are actually pretty good friends, or I guess as much of a friend as Droop can have. And so he really wants to help rebuild her windmill, so he's been sleeping there to get an early start. And about 4 days ago, the workers just stopped coming out to help. And when Droop went into town to get some food, which he's been going back into town occasionally to get food, like, nobody would pay attention to him, nobody would say hello to him, like, nobody was stopping him, but it, this weird effect took place. Whatever it is that's happened 4 days ago, and at night, because all of the workers that had been working at the windmill seem like they've been caught in it. If it had happened during the day, some of them probably would have been at the windmill and would have escaped. Unless it's some kind of an effect where once you stay inside it for a certain amount of time, then it takes effect. So, Glint is still hardcore cuddling Droop and is just like, Droop, how about you come with us for a little while? Like, come on a little bit of an adventure with us. Like, I don't think it's safe. I don't want to leave you here by yourself. But there's something weird going on with the people in Phandalin, and we're gonna fix it, and then you can come back and keep building the windmill. And that offer is kind of where we wrapped up the session. But now we have some options, and Randus has very rightly requested that we discuss things in our private channel, offline, whatever, and give him a direction before the start of the next session so that he can actually make plans. But we have some options. So we can go back, and I think our most likely first step should be going back into Phandalin and doing like a more thorough search, both for people that we haven't laid eyes on yet, and also possibly anything like super out of place, any clues we might get. But again, I don't want to sleep in Phandalin. Maybe shouldn't spend too much time there. Don't know. We could go to Nomengard, but I don't know that they would have any other information besides what Droop was able to give us. We could go to Axholm, because there was, we floated the possibility that maybe if Silidar and Merrick, or even possibly some of the random townspeople, if they escaped the whatever this effect is, maybe they went to Axholm, because we know that Axholm has been set up as like a refuge, or was in the process of being set up as a refuge. We could go check out Cragmaw Hideout and talk to Ymik. Again, I don't know if they would have any other information besides what Droop was able to give us, but again, maybe that's where Merrick and Celadar went to regroup to, if they escape town. We have some information, but not a lot of information. And yeah, and that's about it. So we have a lot of mysteries. Oh, actually, yeah. So Phalar's brilliant plan that Arendiau loves and Light and Bram are not enthusiastic about is, Phalar's thought is, what if we kidnapped somebody from Phandalin and like forcibly drug them outside the area of effect? What would that do? Like, will it wear off, or will it break if they leave, go outside the bubble? Or will it not? We should kidnap somebody and find out, is Phalar's brilliant plan. Actually, that's also a good point, Randus. I had thought of that. Wave Echo Cave is another on the list of relatively nearby locations that have friendly NPCs in them that might have some sort of information. So that's also on the list of possibilities. So yeah, we have a lot of options. We need to be able to give Randus some kind of a direction. Yeah, some kind of a weird enchantment is happening in Phandalin. I will also mention, so for most of the session, so it was me and Merlin and Elrad yesterday. Everybody else was either under the weather or MIA. So me and Merlin and Elrad kind of got off on this tangent of, so I had mentioned that the glass staff seems to have escaped. We spent half the session like red string conspiracy theory board, that the glass staff had escaped and he was the one causing this effect because he wants to like take over the town, and what better way to take over the town than to make sure nobody can resist him. So, whatever this is must be the glass staff like reasserting his control over Phandalin. And we went real red string theory on it until finally Randus just flat out was like, no, it's completely unrelated. The glass staff took the opportunity to escape, but he is not what's causing this. He is gone. Please stop conspiracy theorying that it might be the glass staff, because I'm just going to tell you that it's not. Which was very amusing. So we know for sure it's not the glass staff. Oh, that's true, Elrad, or that's what he wants us to think. Exactly. So yes, the glass staff has indeed escaped, but that is purely coincidental. Probably. So yeah, that was our session. It was real entertaining. And now, Kite, you can see why I commented that I kind of wish Marcella was still around, because she would probably have some really interesting insights into this. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was kind of my first thought as I was like, darn, Marcella would probably have some really interesting things to say about this. Oh yeah, that was the other thing is we had the thought of trying to use, since obviously since the sending stone is still in Carp's hands, trying to use actual sending to locate Silidar or Darren or someone. But none of us has it. Landon was the one that had sending. So that's awkward. But yeah, entertaining, interesting things are happening. I don't think I've forgotten. I think I hit all of the bits. So yeah, my thought is we should probably head back into town to at least do a slightly more thorough search. Um, Go actually check Alderley Farms. Um, Go actually check in at the herbalist shop and see if Mira's affected. Mira and Adabra. Um, but then after that, IDK. Because we kind of walked through the center of town and interacted with a couple people, but we didn't do a real thorough search of like, okay, is there anything that stands out as different, or is there anything that stands out as new? Um, so I think that's probably our first step. But then after that, if we can't find any more clues and we still don't know where Darren, Silidar, and Merrick are, I don't know what our next step is. Ooh, that's a good thought, Kara. I actually didn't even think to check that. Was the Shrine of Timora still intact? Miranda says yes, it is. Interesting. Yeah, I didn't even think to check that. Good thought. Because yeah, we did in fact walk by that. Like walk right by that. Twice, in fact. Oh, the other thing that I don't know if should is the right word, but the other thing that I'll mention, because I did think to check on this, um, while we were in the manor, Light peered into the void again, because remember we have that canyon crack straight through the middle of the basement of the manor. Um, so Light kind of checked on it, and it seems to be the same. There does not seem to be any change to it. There does not seem to be anything wrong with it. And now that they've been there and back once, Light can more clearly identify that what this little like canyon crack thing actually is the reason it's so voidy is it's a place where the veil between our world and the Shadowfell is weaker. So that's what's kind of causing that overflow of void. But it seems to be, I guess, quote unquote, fine. It is no different, no better or worse or wrong than the last time Light saw it. So at least there's that, I guess. But it also doesn't seem to be reacting at all to whatever this effect is, which is kind of what I was curious about. Should have seen it during the climax of Light's big day. Oh dear. Is that a thing that Celadar and or Merrick might have taken note of? Feels like maybe the kind of thing they might have mentioned. Only if they were home and awake. Yeah, that's a fair point. They don't keep an eye on the void puddle in our living room at all times. I'm sure it's fine that we have a void puddle in our living room. Hasn't done anything weird so far. Gave me a cool magic sword. Orange there. But, yeah. It is about 4 o'clock. I think I'll probably call it there for today. I know it is a shorter stream, but I wanted to not delay that D&D recap for too long. Because, you know, interesting. I wanted to do some blanket progress. But yeah, I will probably sign off. I hope everybody has a good rest of your Sunday, a good rest of your afternoon and evening, whatever portion of it might be left. Everybody that is in a heat wave right now, I know it's finally starting to cool off in various parts, but please maintain hydration, maintain your awareness of temperature, keep yourselves cool. Please take care of yourself and others. But yeah, I am actually off all this week for, you know, friendship related reasons. But that said, we're kind of thinking of doing a stream tomorrow for our randomizer. Probably a little bit earlier than we normally would since I'm off work. So stay tuned for that. Not sure exactly what time it'll be yet, but at some point tomorrow afternoon. But yeah, otherwise I should be back. I should be back next Sunday with more of this. Can't think of any reason I wouldn't be next week. So yeah, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, stay hydrated. Like I said, take care of yourselves, check in on others if you can, especially in the heat. But good and wonderful people. And I will see you hopefully tomorrow. Bye. Good blanket.